voting history speaks to his or her civic mindedness?
Yes.
Very good. Please.
Interesting, interesting question. I pause for a minute because I think about the provider. I'll tell you what's actually on my mind. I'll give you the answer to the question. My opponent, according to our data, has only voted in 13 of the last 54 elections. Only 13 of the last 54 elections, and those apparently, if we counted accurately, were the only times that the South Kitsap Fire District levy was on the ballot.
Doug, the question to you is, do you believe that a candidate's voting history speaks to his or her civic mindedness?
Absolutely. You know, the proof's in the pudding. When someone claims to be a fiscal responsible individual, the most fiscal responsible Democrat, you just have to look at the voting record. Who sits on the House Ways Committee of the House Committee? My opponent. Who's raised spending by 33% over the last 4 years? My opponent. Who's increased taxes? My opponent. So look at the voting record. I do agree with that. Voting records, I don't know where my opponent's getting his data, but I think he should check it. He might want to upgrade his computer, because I voted in every election that I was able to vote in, because I either wasn't on duty for 24 hours, or I wasn't out to sea, or I wasn't out of state for that time period. I have a civic mindedness. I've served my country and community. I am proud of my country. I volunteered to join the service, and I volunteered to serve the local community and the fire service and put my life and record on the line every single day. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, having mentioned your career, your military career, the question from one of our participants this morning is, you both mentioned your military careers in your campaign. Please briefly describe your military service and conditions of leaving.
Sure. I served in the United States Navy on the USS Carl Vinson. Joined in 1987. It would have been right around December 10th. Served in the Persian Gulf, or as my opponent would say, near the Persian Gulf. It was during Operation Earnest Will, where I earned my Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. I exited the Navy in September of 1989, and I served and was discharged honorably.
Thank you. Larry?
Just to give you the biographical side, I enlisted in the Navy in 2nd of August 1962, got commissioned in October 64, retired in October of 94 after 32 years. The reason that many of us have been interesting, I'm fascinated to hear Doug say that he got an honorable discharge. That's delightful. I'm glad to hear that. He had explained to a number of people, including the Kitsap reporters, that he was in a program called Sea College, which at the time that I was in the Navy, during that period of time, required 2 years of active duty and 4 to 6 years of reserve time, but he never completed that. And we've never understood how he was able to finish that service before he had actually completed his obligated service.
All right, thank you. And speaking of the military, a follow-up question on that. What is your position on the military vote? What action would you take to ensure Washington complies to ensure the right to vote? Larry?
I guess I'm not quite sure what the questioner had in mind. There are 2 ways to answer that. One, the right to vote. We don't have any particular challenges about that. The problem right now is the decision to vote, the willingness to participate. Something that we're all very conscious of in this non-presidential year cycle. Voting statewide was only about 38%. Our campaign, we're devoted to trying to get more people involved in actually using that ballot. When I go to order, I said, did you vote, or will you vote next time? That's the real right to vote, is to exercise that right.
Well, I think we'd all agree that it is the right of every single citizen of the United States to vote that's of eligibility. And we have to make things more efficient in the voting system for the military personnel to be able to get their votes timed to be counted. We want to make sure that every vote counts totally for making the military accessible to the voting wherever they are in the world. Just to come back real quick to the military record, I held in my hand by DD 214 at the bottom here. Larry, you can take a look. See on it over there?
Yes.
There we go. So I should settle that question of whether I served honorably or not. It just, once again, partisan politics. They want to drag out when they can't attack you on your platform. They want to attack you on your character. Like I've said before, I'm proud to say I served my country and my community, and I continue to serve my community as Battalion Chief of South Kitsap Fire Rescue, and I would love to serve my community in Olympia as your next state representative.
Thank you. So let's get into some more critical issues for some people, because this is really a very important issue for a lot of folks in your district, and that is, what will you do to keep state parks open?
Again?
Yes, please.
State parks is tough because I've talked with my good friend Gary Gibbs here, and it always seems to be the first thing that gets cut when we're looking at the budget. Keeping state parks open is just a symptom of the larger problem. The larger problem is we are overspending the money and the revenue we bring in, so we look for areas to cut. We need to create a stable budget. We need to create a stable revenue stream that will allow for us to use our monies and dedicate them where we want to prioritize them. As communities, we should have that choice to speak with our representatives and take the funding that we know needs to go to these projects and be able to apply them there. The problem is we're not having enough revenue. We don't have enough revenue because we don't have enough jobs. It really comes back to that fundamental issue. If we create the jobs necessary, people will get back to work. It will broaden our tax base, which will increase revenues, which will allow us to pay for these programs and parks and other things within our state government.
This is a very specific question. 2 years ago, the governor in the budget I was just talking about proposed to close 13 parks. 2 of them were in Western Pierce in the 26th district. And we worked out, based on a model that has been successfully used in Montana called the reverse checkoff, a process where, and I just did it myself, my car, if you don't check the box, you leave $5 that goes to state parks. We think that is very close to being able to fund keeping all state parks open. The single most vigorous citizen input on any issue 2 years ago, the 2009 session, was state parks. The citizens of this state want those state parks open. The question now is that checkoff at the right level to be able to keep those parks open with staff? So I will continue to watch that very closely. I work with the parks folks constantly to check those numbers, and we may have to revisit that question.
Thank you. So speaking of parks, let's move on to circles, such as, in retrospect, how do you feel about defeating NASCAR and the jobs it would have created? That goes to you, Larry.
Good. I'm glad to take this one. NASCAR would have created nearly 0 jobs. If you think back to the NASCAR debate, the jobs it promised were a few vendor jobs. Thank God we didn't do that. NASCAR would be an empty pile of junk and dirt piles out there at Skia right now. Do you realize that the French corporation that runs the National Speedway Corporation is in deep financial trouble? Attendance at NASCAR races is way down. TV revenues are way down. We were being used as a pawn by ISC to try to jack up their revenues from other speedways. Thank God we did not go there, and we didn't go there because the voters of this district didn't want their taxpayer money building something for a rich corporation run by a private family on the East Coast.
Okay, thank you. All the applause, please. Doug?
I spent time in the construction industry, and this is a great example of a lack of being in touch with the people in the community. NASCAR was pretty popular around here, and attendance is down, but not significantly down in NASCAR, but not to argue the economics of that. But you know what, when you build things in a community, it goes beyond just a asphalt track. It goes into the hotel services, it goes into the roads, it goes into the service stations and the mini marts and everything else that goes to build up the economy and the economic development in the area to be able to have that facility here. There would still be people working today to be able to create those roads, create those shopping centers, create those service industries that would provide the services to that racetrack. It's just a politics of running down the party line. The party didn't want it. The Democratic Party was against it. Larry stuck by his party line. That was bad for the community. It was bad for the state. We'd have those jobs today.